The Disrupt Education vlog can be found on YouTube. To hear it in podcast form, search Disrupt Education on any of the following podcast platforms: Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Breaker, Castbox, Overcast, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Spotify, or Stitcher. Welcome to Disrupt Education. I'm Peter Hostrasser, the host of the podcast. I got a great guest today. Aarolyn J. Casillas is with us. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, so let's jump in. Let's talk about who you are. So if you can give us kind of an introduction to who you are and what you're doing these days.
I am Aarolyn Casillas, mom of two boys. Former Navy wife, military dependent. My dad was in the Navy, come from a military background completely. I'm the only one that didn't join. So been all over the world. Right now, I'm back in Virginia. I have one son that's at the Naval Academy. The other one is going to college in Texas with my mom. So he decided to stay there after my dad passed away 2 years ago. But just was subbing, before the pandemic happened, and just been waiting around for something to happen. And then I just started, helping and consulting with some friends and to get her daycare up. So now she's up and running, and she's helping her co-workers or counterparts, daycare cohorts that are down there in North Carolina to get their daycares up. So, and they're doing really well down there. Yeah. So it's about it.
Well, we're going to dig into that because you're an advocate of early childhood education and care. And we're going to get there. But in that path, what was your education like yourself as, your father was in the Navy, correct? And so I'm going to guess there was some moving around and such and all that. What was that like for you?
I actually loved being a Navy, the whole Navy life. That's all I know.
Yeah.
So the whole 50 years, that's all I know is being, military. But it was fun. You get to, you move every 2 to 3 years. You learn, different places where you are, different cultures. If you get to experience that, being overseas, different, of course, people, how things are, everything. For me, I loved it. I loved it. But you're used to just not putting roots in one place. So when you do get to stay in one place, it's different.
Yeah.
That's when you've either retired or that's pretty much it. You retired. I mean, that's it. You've retired. And then sometimes with military, one or the other is going to have a job probably where maybe they're traveling if they still want to do that type of thing. But
yeah.
This is kind of different that right now here.
What was your path like? So where were you across overseas? Were you like, how many different places were you?
I would probably say at least 10. I know that I was born in Tennessee. And then we moved my sister was born in, Mississippi. Then we went to the Philippines where my brother was born. And that was fun over there. Of course, education was different over there. We came back. Apparently we were in Hawaii before I was actually in Hawaii a couple of years ago. My mom told me, and of course I don't remember that because I was a baby.
Yeah.
But we came back to Texas, and then we were in Texas, met my husband. Then we, moved. He went to London, and then I went to London after that. Got married, had my first son, and then over there, and then we came back, and then my second son was born in Texas.
So this pandemic, like you're saying, like you're staying in one place, and you're like, wait, this is not normal, right?
Right.
Let's go back into like your schooling, where like as you go through all these different places, you're obviously meeting different people, like you're saying, and you're talking with different cultures and all these different places. What is there one place that out of all of them and we'll just call it education learning, because it's not always in the school, obviously, when you're immersed into a culture or an area of the States or wherever. Is there one thing that like really stuck out? Like, hey, this is cool. I wish like we had this everywhere.
Of course, the learning is different in Japan. I forgot we were in Japan.
Yeah.
In Okinawa. The learning, of course, is different over there. But I was little, so I don't really remember a lot about Japan. I mean, I was like five or six. But it's more, you're learning. It's not you're not testing.
Right.
I don't remember a lot of testing like our children are doing these days. There's so much testing before they can go on to the next grade. I'm not saying testing is not needed, but the amount of testing is over and dated. It's just too much. It's just in my personal opinion. But I learned a lot more, as I got older. I would say probably when we were at our last duty station in Hawaii, before coming back here in 17. Because, the culture is different, even though, it's one of our 50 states, it's still different.
Yeah.
Because it's very family oriented, everything about it. And you have to look at, even though there's a lot of homelessness over there, they are still very, very much family oriented, in the education of their children. Making sure that their kids are educated. You
have two boys. One's in college. One's going the naval route. What was that like raising? I grew up in a family of three boys, and we all were expected to go to college. I didn't get as much out of college as I probably should have. But what was tell us a little bit about like being that person, because I think a lot of our listeners are parents, and they're like, well, what if my kid wants to? You have both lenses. One wants to go into the armed services and serve. One wants to go. So unpack that a little bit. How did that come about?
So my oldest, when he decided to go, was a shock, because I didn't know he was going. I don't think myself nor my ex-husband knew he was going. No one knew he was going, because when you guys get older, boys, you get the little flyers all of a sudden come in the mail, or something comes through school, join the Navy or the Army, whatever it is, it's all of a sudden coming in because you reach that age. I got the blue and gold officers coming to the house, so can we please have some snacks or something ready? I'm like, what are you talking about? What is I know the Navy ranks. I know all the military ranks, but what is a blue and gold officer? What are you talking about? And before he could finish telling me, and I had some stuff at the house already, before he could finish telling me exactly what was going on, the doorbell rang, and blue and gold officer was there, and then that's when he was explaining to me, we sat down and talked, and it was, yeah, he's going, and I'm like,
right,
okay. But honestly, for both of my boys, I never wanted them to go, even though I do come from a military background. I never really wanted them to go, which is, not really a bad thing to say.
Right.
But I just didn't want them to go in the military. But I'm glad that he's in the military. I'm glad they took two different routes. Who knows? My youngest might decide to go. He may not, but they both are enjoying the path that they took.
Yeah, I think, as parents, we want our kids to be safe, right? We just want them to be safe. And I totally get that. I mean, that had to be a shock, though. Like, wait, what's going on, right?
Right.
I feel
with everything that's happening now, as you see, back then and now, because he graduates next year from the academy, and it's the things that are happening, and it's, you don't want that, but then you're proud for both of your children, or however many children you have. You're proud for the path that they've taken, and that you've raised them
Yeah.
to make the decisions that they've made, and they'll be okay as long as they, you know.
Well, they got a great mom. I'll start there.
Thank you.
So let's shift gears then into the the early childhood pieces. You have a friend that you're kind of helping launch there, but you're also kind of an advocate. In our previous conversations, we talked about like early childhood learning and access and all these things. Let's unpack that a little bit. What is that? First off, like these are very important times for a young person, right? How did you kind of get involved in, obviously as a mother and even a parent myself, like you look at these things and you're like, yeah, man, our kids need access to something as young and to help everybody make ends meet and whatnot. But tell us a little bit about like how this came about, because this is a big issue and a big challenge in the United States right now.
It really started from when I was young, because I've always been involved with wanted to do something with children, because I really wanted to be a neonatologist, but that didn't turn out. So the next path was working with children in some capacity in early childhood, child advocacy. And I had a professor when I was getting my CDA and my early childhood specialist degree, my associate's, Dr. Irma Woods, at Del Mar College in Corpus Christi, which is the same college my son is going to.
Yeah.
Just so happened. She actually told me, because I had kept missing classes, and then she asked me why, and I told her, because I have a baby and I didn't have childcare at the time. Which I could have left them with my parents, but it was, they're mine. So I'm taking care of my own. And she told me, she's like, that's not an excuse. You're in an early childhood class. What sense does that make to not come to a class when you're in early childhood? Bring them to class with you. So I started doing that, and it was funny because it's like they became the little, not tokens, but
you got a baby to work with in an early,
to work with, and
right.
live babies that they could work with in the classroom, because Andreas was already 2 and Victor was a baby, so they kept, they had their infant they could work with, and they had their 2-year-old, their toddler, that they could work with in the class. And she did tell me, and I've used that mantra ever since. There's no excuse for you not to come to class. There's no excuse for you not to complete what you've started. Just because you have a child, and you can't neglect your kids, and and show them that you're being neglectful in that way, just because this is happening. You always can make a way, some kind of way, and so she never let me fail at anything, and I love her for that.
Yeah.
And she retired the same year that Victor went down there, which is in 19. I think a couple of weeks before to go to school.
Yeah.
But it's ever since then, every time I would go and register for school, it was the same thing. I would just bring them with me, because I did all my classes online, so it was easy for me, especially moving around. And I would incorporate them into helping me, it was funny, helping me do my work. Per se, like, they would learn their ABCs and 1, 2, 3, having them sort things in that type of manner, when there was something that needed to be done. But within that, I would teach them, different things, because it was about, advocating for them to learn, their phonics or their, like I said, their ABCs and things that have to do with early childhood. And with their teachers, I would tell them, I have them at work with me because, it's just me, dad is deployed and I don't have anybody else. And, they understood because it was on a military base as well, but it was more so I was able to do those type of things. And throughout my entire time, for my bachelor's, my master's, all of it, that's how I would handle it. And I didn't believe in just because, I went to go graduate that we were going to skip school that day. No, we're going to school. Even if it was 30 minutes. They went to school. On the way back, after graduation, all the way from Iowa,
Wow.
we came back.
Huh.
And then, the school was even like, what are you doing? They
Hmm.
only have 30 minutes. It doesn't matter. Their education is important. How can I be, an educator and have my kids not come to school just because, you know, I graduated? I mean, no, they need to go to school and learn whatever it is they're learning in the last 30 minutes of school. And
Yeah.
that's what they did, all the time.
Hmm.
But I do believe that any opportunity for children to learn is a good opportunity, no matter what it is. They can be driving down the street and see a sign. Instead of just being McDonald's, teach them, the letter M, teach them the letters in McDonald's. Because they're going to learn that way by seeing the picture of what that is. So they can, say, that's McDonald's, and they can see the picture.
Hmm.
I still have to this day the little picture cards that I made when I first started in early childhood. It's like a tiger, and the word is on the back of it, but it's, you show it to the child, and it's like, what is it? It's tiger, and it goes back and forth. And I used that when I was subbing, and there's my special needs class and all my younger classes.
Hmm.
And you make it a game, and they actually liked it.
Yeah.
And they would prefer that over some of the other stuff that they had in the classroom, where it was just like, like the puzzles that they had to do, because they were they would see the animals, and then they'd flip it over, and you could spell out the word that is on the back of it, because it took it back to just regular things, like regular plain, blocks that you would
Yeah.
have, things like that.
I think it's very cool. Honestly, how this professor who really was just kind of set everything like
Hmm.
up is amazing, because I think there are a lot of blockers in education because there's a lot of assumptions and a lot of isms and all
Right.
these things that occur. Yet this one professor was like, bring them in. I'm like, I'm excited about that, because that's an experiential learning.
Hmm.
And even, like you're describing driving in the car, everything is an experience, is
Right.
actually a learning moment. So how do you plan on taking that
Hmm.
moment, and what's next for Aarolyn? Like, what's going to happen? What are you looking to do? I guess one of my business partners always calls it the big
Hmm.
hairy goal. What's the big hairy goal of where you want to go? Because you are a PhD candidate
Right.
as well, so we're close.
Still working on
Congratulations.
it. It's
Yes.
happening.
Yeah, and
It's still
congratulations on that. That is an amazing track.
happening.
But yeah, where do you want to go with this? And
Right.
what do you want to do?
Well, I have my nonprofit that I started. I started it
Yes.
when we were in Hawaii. Then, life happened. We moved. Things happened. So I'm getting that back up and running. It was geared more towards abuse and neglect in
Hmm.
children, and the education of children. Just making sure that they have the right and proper education, and just doing a lot of consulting within that. So I'm getting that up and running again, and then just working a lot with that, and just more consulting. And I just talked to, a church in California,
Hmm.
so Agape Christian Ministry, to maybe hopefully work with them to do some casework or social work
Hmm.
um, for their pre-K program. Of course, it would most likely be online,
Right. Right.
but that's okay.
Hmm.
Um, but something along that line, just more advocacy and policy, because to me, I think that there's a lot of things that need to be changed within policy,
Hmm.
not just for the children, but for the teachers as well, for the educators. I think a lot of things they just need to change,
Hmm.
um, because it just seems like a lot is still on that mentality that we just need to test, test, test. But then when you look at the children, is you're testing them, but are we testing the teachers, the educators to do that as well? Um, it, and then if you're not, then what sense does it make it to test the children if
Right.
the educators aren't on the
Hmm.
same page, if they don't even know? But a lot of that is where I'm headed towards, and then
Hmm.
just making, especially with COVID, it is hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've been helping, like a friend, try and get that part of the, business out, like with health and sanitation and like sanitizers, and get some of that out to maybe some, the schools that are in need, get that out to them. But there's a lot of, of course, red tape that has to go.
Yeah, there's so much, and I mean, in our conversation before, we were talking about like the transition when COVID subsides a little bit, and then
Right.
going back into school, but there's still going to be these challenges. It opened up a lot of windows to what are the inequities in school, what are the trauma that's happening, and now even there's another layer, unfortunately, of COVID, like you're explaining. It's amazing because I love this story of going through your college and that one person, right? That mentor, that
Right.
nope, let's go. And it usually happens, and I really appreciate that. I know you're going to give that to so many more people. How can people connect with you, possibly work with you? Where can people find you?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, and I do have my site is almost up for my Aarolyn's, it's called Aarolyn's Angels, which is actually after my boys. So it's my name, and then my angels are my boys. So they actually came up with that one.
Oh, nice.
And then yeah, so it's just really, I'm on Twitter, but not as much. So but I do have my Instagram, which is under, I still believe it's under my my Miss Navy Yard.
Which, yeah,
but
you are a pageant winner. I'm just going to throw that
one.
out there. So
it's under that.
Yeah. People can check that out on Instagram, because I think we follow each other on Instagram.
Right.
Aarolyn, I want to thank you so much for sharing your story. And obviously, there's more to come. And best of luck on the PhD that's coming shortly. But we really appreciate it. You are a disruptor in the way that you're going to make some good things happen, some policy. I know it. And then and with the Aarolyn Angels. Thank you so much for hanging out with us on Disrupt Education today.
Thank you so much for having me again.
Awesome. And thank you all for listening. Give us a subscribe, check out, give us some feedback, hit those 5 stars, it always helps, and we'll see you next time.